So I was listening to Nick Rekieta's channel after the midterms, and one of the things he had pointed out as Republican stupidity, which I tend to agree with, is that they need to get on
marijuana stuff.
Well, yeah, they need to get on board with the legalization, and I think for the most part, I think most people are there, but there's still some states that are not. And I think in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Arkansas, they voted down legalization in the ballot initiatives they had there. So that's kind of like the stupid party stuff. So I'm pro.
People,
Go ahead.
I think it's the people that are still listening to that. It's like a right versus left issue, and it really has nothing to do with that. It's just not.
It's not, but it kind of feels like it still is, because you've got the just say no, that's so ingrained, I think, in the Republican, side, or anyone who's older than, or 30, probably.
I think it's more than that, though. I mean, there's people alive that know the anti-cigarette smoking campaigns, right? And now you're being told, I mean, they're moving heaven and earth to prevent you from smoking a cigarette, right? Nicotine. And at the same time saying, yeah, let's do the wacky tobacco. It, for the logical party, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't compute. Doesn't, people are like, well, wait a second. Okay, I accepted the fact that you banned smoking from everywhere, cigarettes. You can't smoke it in a bar, you can't smoke it in a restaurant. In some places, you can't smoke it in your own restaurant or your own residence. And then at the same time,
smoke it here or there. You cannot smoke it anywhere.
Yeah, you can't smoke it anywhere. And at the same time, well, here's something that actually mentally alters you. Yeah, let's make this legal. It logically, that does not compute. And I would posit to say the people on the conservative side, the right side of the aisle, are logical people.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I always go back to, like, the people I've always worked with. As I said, it's not really a right or left issue, because redneck hillbillies love their weed. That's just like case in point. Like, don't care, right? I mean, it's not a thing. And I would say that the more conservative right, in terms of the business side of things, having had probably supported big tobacco, is probably with a pretty simple statement from Mr. Trump. I actually believe that if he would have come out before the election and said that he would be for federal descheduling of the marijuana and all cannabis products in order to get business correct in the states, that he would have just even bigger landslide. Because I'll tell you something, there's a lot of like things that are the same with a lot of marijuana users, more natural living users, and one of those things is the jab, right? A lot of them don't like the jab. They don't like big pharma. They don't like a lot of those things. But it's just like you said, Riggs. It's so weird. They want you to stop smoking, but they'll be all for marijuana, because they think that marijuana will be the next chance at equity. But that's another gigantic failure of this whole liberal experiment of trying to push. Because I would say that the initial legalization efforts, right, it's mostly driven by the left, and I mean, just because traditionally those on the left would be pro marijuana for all the reasons there, and the right would be against it for whatever domestic conservative issue.
But can I just pause you right there and ask?
Yeah, we're jumping all over the place.
I just want to pause you right there and ask you. So you posit that
what we do.
You posit that the left was the first to be for legalization of marijuana. Is that your?
That's my posit. Yeah, I might be wrong.
Okay, now, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. But would you say that wasn't it the left that was anti-nicotine?
I actually don't know. I actually don't know the answer to that.
What would your answer to that question?
I think probably the more left leaning people would be against smoking, and from a public health kind of angle.
Well, how do you
you
square that circle? That's what I have a
well,
hard time
you
understanding.
can't,
I
and
honestly,
that's I have the same. I encounter the same thing, and I've been at the same place of employment for a decade, and my work takes me into multifamily residential buildings on the regular. And I would say 10 years ago, it was you'd smell the cigarette smoke in the corridors and outside of people's apartments and things like that, and you'd never smell marijuana. Occasionally, you would, in the process of doing inspections, you'd see evidence, of people partaking. But now, over the last, 5 years, I'd say, increasingly common to find, to smell it in the hallways, on the roofs, in the parking garages, pretty much in people's homes, pretty much everywhere, to the point where it's like it'll knock you over when you get off an elevator. So and this is from a state that was late to the party as far as legalizing for recreational purposes.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
let me take it one step further.
So all those places have been, a lot of them are grandfathered, so it's a never-ending battle to try to stop the people from smoking cigarettes or cigars or whatever. I mean, I was even involved in a legal matter with one homeowner suing another homeowner because they were smelling what they thought was their cigarettes coming through the walls and the vents and stuff. So we had to try to figure out if that was actually happening. But people just kind of complain under their breath about the marijuana stuff. It's because it's so progressive to be in favor.
Yeah, but I would not simplify it as such, because there was such a vehement anti-vaping movement, which vaping for the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, I think
the mainstream vaping is for nicotine, and yet, I mean, the full weight of the federal government is coming down on vaping.
Well,
but
the
Mary Jane, okay.
Well, that's what's hilarious about the vaping thing, is that the all of that was completely misdirected, and more in favor of legalization than not, because they've found, I'm pretty sure I read a lot of stuff on that, and I'm no expert, but in my survey of the situation, all of the vape deaths and all of the noise I heard with all of the vape lungs and all that kind of stuff was coming from illegal vaping mechanisms and not those that were permitted. I don't think they have a single case of any of this nefarious activity that happened with VapeGate, where they shut down all the vaping, all the marijuana vaping and nicotine vaping for that period of time. And they've implemented laws. They've cut out, flavored vapes for nicotine. They stopped the vapes in Massachusetts for like 6 months, which like brutalized the burgeoning marijuana industry, because you had products sitting on a shelf that then had to be retested and redeployed and take up space, and they age and it's not as good, the oil breaks down, et cetera, and now you cause this big catastrophe when really it was all Chinese vapes on the street illegally, just like fentanyl and all this other stuff.
We're trying to protect the children, so the children, instead of out back behind the CVS smoking ill-gotten cigarettes or something they cribbed from grandma, they're getting their jewel pods,
the Chinese stuff,
somehow, and or through the same means probably. But this is this national emergency, but it's no different than what it was before. I guess they could be sneakier about it because you can't smell it on them anymore. But what
the hell is the logical position? I mean, what is the argument?
There isn't one turn. I mean, that's the thing. You're absolutely right.
The vaping thing is that there's insufficient data on long-term health consequences. Where I would say at this point, just from what I've seen in the last 10 years, that the introduction of e-cigarettes is a public health miracle.
Yeah,
in
Exactly.
transitioning people off of combustible products to something
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
less.
but even if we go back to the old school stuff, the traditional light the flame, light a combustible product. I mean, tobacco kills you what, 60 years, 50 maybe. I mean, if you're unlucky, right? And that's it. It's like it's something that kills you. Caffeine that kills you in 50, 60 years, 70 maybe. And the marijuana is similar to alcohol, and it alters your mental state, right?
Yeah.
So and who knows what the long-term effects, I'm sure they must be similar to tobacco. I mean, you're inhaling leaves
Products
on
of
fire.
combustion.
I think what you're
Products of
getting at is
combustion.
that we're all pretending that it's perfectly fine and there's nothing.
It's not. Totally not.
There's no
Yeah.
consequences, from it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
one we need to open the doors for, the other one continue cracking down on. So, and the one that we're cracking down on has no mental effects other than mental effects similar to caffeine.
Yeah, so Turn, I 100% agree with you. I would just say both of them should be let to go in a free country, right? I mean, that's really
Well,
what,
yeah,
in
no,
my
I
opinion.
agree with you, ThaWaaagh. Without a doubt, I agree with you. I'm just trying to understand the jihad against tobacco.
Oh, I agree.
And the let's open the doors to marijuana. That
I
makes
think
no
that you have
sense to me.
I think you have to follow the money, and this is what I always suspected, is that because big pharma, big med went behind the ACA, and they had to pick up the tab. They had to shut down big smoking because big tobacco is a mean thing. It's like the South Park episode, right, Riggs? I mean, it's like or both of you guys, like you go to the hall of what everybody chooses or whatever, and it's my sexy body, stuff, and then there's a guy smoking, and then they just scream at them, like it's like what?
Yeah, but I mean,
it doesn't square.
No, it doesn't square, because if you use Coca-Cola every day like you use Marlboros, you're going to die.
Way worse. Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, worse.
So
way worse.
That's what is weird to me. And I'm not, I'm a former smoker, and I enjoyed it, quit it because I know the health effects. But lots of things that are legal kill you.
Yep.
So I don't understand the mechanism for the federal government to get involved and decide that you cannot partake of this product. Well, they get a lot of money from tobacco.
And they get even more from marijuana now too.
Well, I don't think they get anywhere near what they were getting from tobacco from marijuana. And I would say this: I think that there's my tinfoil hat. Put my tinfoil hat on, and the actions against the vaping industry and people who vape, trying to make it more difficult for them. I think there's definitely an angle there to kind of push people back into the cigarettes. I really do. Because when you pick some, I know it's a lot cheaper when you have one of those fancy vape pens and interchangeable filters and batteries and heating elements and all that kind of stuff, and you buy the juice by the gallon instead of the $20 pack of Juul pods or whatever. But when you get with something, you tend to stick with it, and people go in and buy those, and when they can't find them anymore, and you're standing there in front of the counter at the Quick Stop. Well, I guess I'll take old trusty Marlboro Reds. I need something. So, which is, I guess, part of the problem with it is you're not quitting anything really. You're just transferring over to something else, a different nicotine delivery mechanism, but one that's seems to be less destructive. But if you need that fix, you're gonna get it from wherever you can. right?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of the weed stuff, with the, we were talking about pharmaceutical, companies and stuff before. I mean, I'm somebody, I think, on the record that's pretty skeptical of the benefits of marijuana. I'm sure there are some, but I tell you what, after everything I've seen the last 2 years from the pharmaceutical companies, I think my skepticism is waning because
Well, that's exactly right.
they just
right?
want to put you on everything that comes out of their labs and research and development budgets, so they can charge you forever. Looking at looking at the psychological drugs and all that kind of stuff. That the numbers that are coming out now of the 75
don't
million
work.
kids are on Adderall, or some,
Right.
Other thing. And now you're seeing articles about these different antidepressants, none of them really work, it's pretty wild. So, I don't trust, let's say I trust big pharma a lot less after the last 2 years than I did before. And maybe some of those leftists that I would, kind of poke fun at, previously, we're onto something.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is that, I mean, there is natural medicines exist, just like natural immunity exists, but we'll leave that one there. And not everything has to be solved by taking a pill or doing something. You can even if it's not marijuana, you could just drink a tea. There's things that you can do to help with depression, help with anxiety, and help with this and help with that. And when those things get a little bit too rough, there's other things that are still naturally there that aren't available because they've been shut out by the farm, big pharma. And I was with you guys, right? I mean, I thought that, oh, big pharma, they're just really working to get where we need to go as humans, and they're all on the up and up and blah blah blah. But after the last couple of years, nope. That's all pretty much out the window. Shaken confidence by the normal man is rough, man or woman, is a rough position to be in, and I don't think people accept it on its face anymore. There's a big portion of the population that doesn't accept it on its face. There's a big portion that does, and will get boosted to infinity and beyond. But right now, there's a huge growing anti-medicine movement, which is dangerous in the other way, right? You don't want these people just saying, I'm not going to take any vaccinations at all. And that's what's happening now. It's because they've just ruined the trust of any kind of legitimate medical organization. So what are you going to do? I don't know. But
no, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we saw a study recently that I guess magnesium is good for
a lot,
helping with depression. So I added that into the vitamin cocktail, to boost the immune system.
Yeah,
that I've been taking for the last year and a half. But yeah, I will say I will take issue with one thing. Waag, you said, if Trump had gone all in on decriminalizing marijuana, legalizing it, changing the schedule, whatever, that he would have won in a landslide. And I think that may be true if he had done so at a very early date and rode that train.
Yes. Agreed.
I think the fortification,
as we talked about last time,
to that. So it last Hail Mary pass, a week before the election,
it wouldn't have worked.
Like, oh, we're gonna go. One of our big things is right this wrong and pardon everybody, and this is racist, criminalization and all this kind of stuff. They would have possibly. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That was our last week's conversation, so we'll just leave it with that. But the mail-in voting has to stop. Period.
Yep.
But but yeah. So what were we talking about?
The wacky tobacco.
Yeah. So what else about it?
I don't know. Just 20 minutes.
Got a couple more states. A couple more states approved the use of it. I think it will be damn near 50 states somewhat soon. I don't believe that the federal government will do anything about it in earnest, just because of the 280E tax treatment of these companies. Now, are you guys familiar with this?
Negative.
No, that's
And
gibberish.
yeah, sorry. So most people are not. If you're not in the industry, you probably have no idea, because everybody would go, why doesn't the federal government just legalize it and tax the shit out of it? It's, well, because they're taxing the shit out of it right now. The federal government is actually making billions and billions of dollars right now on the marijuana companies because of a piece of the tax code called 280E. Now, I'm no expert on taxes, and I'm not a tax professional. I'm just a dumb mechanical engineer. But the 280E tax code disallows, it makes them pay income tax, but it does not allow them to write off the cost of goods sold against their product. So for a normal company, when you're a manufacturer, you make a product, you don't pay taxes on anything going into the product, and you pay taxes on the product in its final form, right? So you make a car, your General Motors, right? All the windshield wipers and the engine and the tires and all the AC Delco products that you buy, and you put them in the car. Well, you don't pay taxes on that the whole time until you bring the car to the showroom sorry, there's a message on the side, and you don't pay taxes on any of that stuff, and then when you sell the car, you pay tax on the whole thing. Well, marijuana companies aren't able to do that, so they get taxed on their entire top line revenue rather than their net revenue, subtracting COGS. So what happens is they end up having these tax rates that are just like incomprehensible. If the equivalent taxes they pay are like 85 to 95% of their profits. So even the ones that are doing really, really well are only making like a couple $1 million. Like the big multi-billion, like the billion-dollar companies, not the ones in Canada that are burning 90% of what they grow. Like there's two companies that are here in the States that are very good, GTI and Verano, that are still struggling. You know, they make EBITDA, their EBITDA looks great, but they get taxed to oblivion. So they
What is EBITDA?
Earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation.
Oh, okay. Not a cool drug thing. It's just tax stuff.
It's tax stuff. It's dumb tax stuff. But all of that to say, even these huge marijuana companies that are selling in multi-state operators and all that stuff, they're all losing money because the federal government is taxing the ever-loving shit out of them.
That's because you haven't stopped moving yet.
What's that?
That's because you haven't stopped moving. I mean, that's the Reagan quote. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. So you haven't gotten to the stop moving phase.
Well,
stop moving phase. The government money will start rolling in.
Right. This is the thing. Next year, I believe that fully half of these companies will fail. And everybody at the BizCon was talking about mergers and acquisitions, when the reality is nobody has any money. So any mergers and acquisitions will come out of trying to survive, which will be pure equity swaps. There won't be investments or purchases like we've seen in the last 5 years of these big megas going after and expanding through purchasing. It'll be mergers so that they don't die. And the ones that don't will just die. It's too much tax. And inflation, and less stipend from the government, as it were, I guess. So we definitely saw all that money from all of the stimulus just basically go to buy weed, in our experience, or a bunch of it anyway. So anyway, that's the state of the weed market. It's going to be a bloodbath next year, but hopefully it'll come back through, because it's just more and more legalization and people are going to make a go of it. So it's not dead, certainly. It's hard times. And if you're out there looking to invest money in it, don't probably.
Well, it's
let the ashes fall.
Hard pass, right? Hard pass.
Yeah, hard pass for me. Yeah, definitely. If I had any money, I wouldn't be putting it into weed companies.